Danielle Imbo was born on August 7th, 1970 in South Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to parents John and Felice Otobre. Her father, a singer who went on by the stage name Johnny October, rose to fame in 1950s as a member of the doo-wop group, the Four Dates, which eventually became a backup group for the popular singer Frankie Avalon. As a daughter of the musician, Danielle had developed an extreme liking and a deep love for music and enjoyed singing and attending concerts. She was an avid reader of murder mysteries and worked as a loan processor. Those close to Danielle knew her as a kind and outgoing person, as well as a dedicated mother to her 18th month old son Joe Jr., while Richard Petron Jr. was born on August 29, 1969 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to parents Richard and Margaret. Described as a hardworking, laid back, family oriented, and compassionate, Richard was a devoted single father to his 14-year-old daughter Angela and worked at his family's bakery, Viking Pastries, in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. He too, like Daniel, loved music, especially rock. Additionally, he loved watching sports and was a fan of the Chicago Bears. In 2004, Daniel's husband Joe Imbo left for Houston to see the Super Bowl, leaving behind his wife and his baby, both of who had a cold at the time. When he got back, he announced that he had met another woman on the plane and wanted a divorce from his wife. She was shocked and deeply hurt, but Danielle, well, she agreed to this and began the divorce proceedings. Sadly, the separation took a lot of toll on the mental health of Daniel, who began chain smoking and dropped an alarming amount of weight. This is when Richard Petron Jr. came back into her life. Richard and Daniel grew up in the same neighborhood and had known each other for the, well, most part of their lives. Danielle was a close friend with Richard's sister but had lost touch with Richard over the years. However, they immediately hit it off upon reconnecting and soon began dating. Richard was amazingly in love, and his daughter Angela said these words. Danielle was the first girl he ever fell in love with and wanted to dedicate his time to. But even though the pair was seemingly happy with each other, Danielle was going through a painful divorce. She was in the middle of it and decided that it would be the best if she and Richard didn't see each other for a while so she could put her entire focus on the divorce proceedings and her baby. Richard, being the thorough gentleman, respected Daniel's wishes and stayed away. Daniel's husband Joe had a temper, and to the not the shock of a lot of people, the woman that he barely knew, their relationship didn't last, and he went back to Danielle trying to reconcile and give their marriage another chance. But well, at this particular time, Danielle wanted to divorce him and thought that it was right. She still had feelings for her husband, but she thought this was the right thing to do. As Joe was allegedly controlling and short tempered, and his pleas for reconciliation often erupted, into explosive arguments. On one of these occasions, Joe reportedly became so angry that he threw his son's high chair at the wall, though he would later deny this accusation. On February 19th, 2005, Richard was eating alone at a bar when he decided that he wanted to go somewhere to see live music. He called his sister Christine and asked if she would join him. She declined but passed on the invitation to Danielle, who happened to be visiting her at the time. Joe had the baby and was out of town that night. Richard and Danielle hadn't spoken in weeks, but she accepted the invitation to his surprise. He picked her up in a 2001 black Dodge Dakota, and the two of them went to a bar called Albany's on Philadelphia's South Street, meeting up with Richard's friends Anthony and Michelle. They watched a band perform together and nothing at all seemed out of the ordinary. In fact, Richard and Danielle were seen absolutely happy sitting close to each other and kissing inside the bar. They even compared their schedules for following weekend as if to plan another date. Anthony and Michelle asked the couple that if they wanted to join them to another bar, but both declined, explaining that they had an early morning and they didn't want to stay up too late. At approximately 11:45 p.m., they prepared to leave. Richard was overheard saying he would drive Daniel home to Mount Laurel before returning to South Philly. They walked outside in the evening air together, and that was the last time they were seen or heard from since. The next morning, Danielle missed her hair appointment. Both her cell phone and Richard's cell phone went straight to voicemail. The family became increasingly concerned that the brother of Danielle, John Ortobre, decided to go and check on her using the spare key that he had. It was dark inside when he entered, and nothing seemed suspicious or out of place. By 3 p.m., the time Joe Jr. was usually dropped off by his father, Danielle still wasn't anywhere traceable. She still wasn't anywhere home. That's when John knew something was wrong. She wouldn't have missed that, no way, he later remarked. Both Danielle and Richard were close to their families and in frequent contact with them. It wasn't like either of them would just vanish without any explanation. When Joe arrived at Daniel's home to drop off little Joe, he found out that the family was there, but not Danielle. John tried to cover her by saying that she couldn't be there right now, and he asked him to take care of Joe Jr. in her absence. However, hours went by and there was no trace of these individuals, and their families knew something must be wrong, and thus the search began. Despite several extensive searches, no sign of Daniel and Richard or the truck could ever be located. There is no eyewitness accounts of them leaving the bar or after leaving the bar. They didn't appear on any toll bridge cameras after the departure from Abilene's. And when investigators checked their respective bank accounts, credit cards, and cell phones, nothing unusual came up. In fact, there was no activity at all. So, what happened to the couple? The theories are that because the truck vanished as well, that they accidentally drove into the nearby Delaware River. But those familiar with the Philadelphia area believe this is an unlikely explanation, as there isn't any direct access to the river from the street. Another possible explanation is that they were carjacked and unalived, with the truck taken to a chop shop afterwards and sold for parts. This idea seemed a little plausible to some. After all, over 13,000 vehicles were stolen in Philadelphia area in 2004 alone. The FBI and the Philadelphia Stolen Car Squad worked on this in conjunction to the investigation of this lead, but it ultimately went nowhere as no evidence of a carjacking could be found. The involvement of the FBI in a missing persons case, is very rare. There were some further developments. A tip was received from a local waitress about a broken gate near the Delaware River. It appeared that someone had driven through it. An extensive search was conducted of the river in that particular area, where several vehicles were found, but Richard's Dodge Dakota was not amongst them. In 2021, The FBI released a new statement reporting that an extensive investigation to date has generated some promising leads. However, neither they nor the vehicle has ever been located. This case is still open and being actively investigated by the FBI as they believe it was an unaliving for hire. Philadelphia Police Department, Mount Laurel Police Department, New Jersey State Police, and the Burlington County Prosecutor's Office are also in investigation. I beg your pardon of this. Though the whereabouts of Daniel Imbo and Richard Petron Jr., as well as the events leading up to their disappearance, remain a mystery, their families are still holding on hope that this case will be solved one day and they will be able to give their loved ones a proper resting place. Thank you so much for watching this video. The heart goes out to these individuals and their families. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Thank you so much.